everybody. Welcome to Around the Nation right here. YouTube.com/QITNation. I'm Jeff Waldorf, your host. We got a good show today. We are coming off the heels of the Trump speech. I have a few thoughts on that. We'll get to that in a few minutes. But again, welcome to the show. As we go around the nation for the next hour for the best progressive commentary and stories from around the nation. I have fucked that up today. I'm off my game. It's one of those days today. It's Wednesday. It's hump day. I'm humped out. Basically. Anyway, but don't worry. We do got a really, really good show for you guys. We do have a couple of speech things from last night. We've also got Bernie Sanders giving his response to Donald Trump's speech. The Immigrant Crime Office, that's new policy from Donald Trump. Then we got Sessions on marijuana. That's an interesting story. We have a Flint story. Very, very important what's going on in Flint, Michigan. We'll cover that as well. And then we have some of the anti-Semitic threats that we want to talk about as well. So a full show today. So don't worry. It's going to be a great hour. It's going to be a great show. A little disastrous, but that's the news today. It's all disastrous. But anyway, there is one thing that I do want to mention. But first, I do want to go through and give you actually some good news about the channel. Actually, February has been a record month for TYT Nation. So we've amassed nearly 1.5 million views just this month. That is amazing. It's all thanks to you guys. So thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for giving me these views and sharing with your friends and family. Much appreciated. Much love. Thank you so much. More stuff. We nearly have 10 million views on this channel. So that's awesome. This month we've had 5,000 new subscriptions. So thank you, people who are new. Thank you so much for subscribing. And again, we really, really appreciate you. And then we have 2 new patrons for the day as well. We have Linda Mitchell and Timothy Zykon. Hopefully I said that right. I have been known to butcher names. So thank you, Linda. Thank you, Timothy. New patrons of the day. I appreciate it. Thank you for helping to fund independent progressive media. You're awesome. Now, before I get into the Trump speech, there's a little fun news, a little good news that I want to share, and this comes from the Washington Post. It's more sciencey stuff, which admittedly is not my area of expertise, but I thought it was really, really fascinating. According to the Washington Post, they have found fossils that could be the earliest evidence of life on Earth. Well, how old are these fossils? They're about 3.77 billion years. Holy shit. Now, these are microfossils. So very, very, very small, uncovered on Canadian rocks. So according to scientists, these structures, which are tubular in nature, could be remnants of some of the earliest life on Earth. And this is... of course, these fossils, these microfossils, are believed to have come from ancient microbes. So, now scientists, of course, are debating the age, but the author's youngest estimate is 3.77 billion years old. Wow. That is amazing. Science is fucking awesome. When we can find fossils of creatures that old. It really is amazing. And it's going to have, if this turns out to be as old as they think it is, well, it's going to have some profound implications on what we think about life and where it could end up. They said if the results are confirmed, it will boost the belief that organisms arose very early in the history of Earth and may find it just as easy to evolve on worlds beyond our own. Matthew Dodd, a biochemist at University College London and the lead author on this paper, said the process to kickstart life may not need a significant length of time or special chemistry, but could actually be a relatively simple process to get started. It has big implications on whether or not life is abundant in the universe. And look, I believe it. I believe life has to be abundant. It would be ridiculous to have such a huge... Because think about it. It's mind-boggling how big space actually is. It's incomprehensible, the distances that we have. Human minds can't think of how big the universe actually is. It's enormous. And in all that space, to have one species that's alive on this planet that could achieve intelligence even. No, I don't believe it at all. There has to be other species out there. You know, look, it's debatable how many of them are intelligent or not, but they've got to be out there. And look, this is the one time, and I got to bring this up, the one time I agree with Alex Jones.
I want to go to space. I want to see interdimensional travel.
Yeah, I do. And look, yeah, other species are out there.
It's not human intelligence.
I know. I always find a way to work in Alex Jones to these, but seriously, no. Science is fucking awesome. And I absolutely love it. And this is an amazing discovery. And I look forward to seeing more discoveries like this. So that's fun. I got to get a little sciencey good news in here because this is the kind of stuff that absolutely fascinates me. But let's move on. Let's go back down to earth and talk a little bit about Donald Trump's speech. Now, it's going to be a little bit of an overview. I'm not going to get really too far into specifics, but I do want to address what I generally thought of this speech. Now, for one, a lot of people noticed, I noticed myself, listening to this, he actually, for once, sounded like an adult. He read the teleprompter very, very well. He practiced the speech very, very well. He rarely went off and did ad-libbing, which, like, normally if Donald Trump goes to ad-lib, you're going to come up with some very, very tremendous or very, very bads. But it looks like he actually did very well stylistically. He presented the speech very, very well. Pretty sure he didn't write it, but then again, most presidents don't write their own speeches, so let's be fair about that. And it had a lot of Bannon in it. A lot of the populist stuff, you could definitely tell Steve Bannon had a hand in it, and that's fine. Steve Bannon's a weird type of populist. So, again, stylistically, the speech was good. He didn't mess it up. Now, of course, like a lot of presidential speeches, got a lot of inaccuracies about it, the crime rates and all that stuff. But, again, it was a much softer speech. It was a better speech. But you could tell, listening to it, there are some nationalistic undertones. And that's to be expected from, of course, somebody like Trump. So, there's that. I think for people who are fans of Trump, and people who might be on the edge of Trump, and I tweeted this out last night, that I think that this is going to reassure a lot of people. Because I know there are people getting mad like, Trump, start sounding like a president. You're the fucking president. Sound like a president, and don't go and attack the media. Don't go and attack your enemies. Just give us a more hopeful vision. Tell us what you're going to do. And on this, he delivered. That's exactly what he did. So this is actually what's needed. What Trump needed to do. Now, again, you guys know me. I don't agree with Trump on almost anything. But this was a much better speech. Now, of course, in my opinion as well, seeing all these people give him praise for delivering a speech that didn't go after his enemies, that didn't do any of the stuff that he normally does, it's kind of like praising a dog for not shitting on the carpet. But, hey, regardless, he did sound like an adult. He did do a good speech, so good boy. Maybe, and look, maybe a lot of people are saying, well, this might be the new Trump. There is no new Trump. There's just Trump. Trump is Trump. He's always going to be Trump. So no, I hate to break it to you, man. This isn't the sign of a new Trump. This is Trump reading a good speech written by somebody else and not deviating from it. So that's what I think about this whole thing. Now, let's get to what some other people think about this speech. Let's go to Bernie Sanders. Now, following President Trump's address to Congress last night, Senator Bernie Sanders decided to deliver his own response to the president via Facebook. Let's take a look.
Tonight, President Trump once again made it clear that he plans on working with Republicans in Congress who want to repeal the Affordable Care Act, throw 20 million Americans off of health insurance, privatize Medicare, make massive cuts in Medicaid, raise the cost of prescription drugs for seniors, eliminate funding for Planned Parenthood, while at the same time he wants to give yet another massive tax break to the wealthiest Americans, which is what would happen if the Affordable Care Act were repealed. As he did during his campaign, Donald Trump claimed that he would bring down the cost of prescription drugs. A few weeks ago, he even said that the pharmaceutical industry was, quote, getting away with murder, end quote. But if Donald Trump really wanted to take on the pharmaceutical industry, he would have told his Republican friends in the House and the Senate to pass legislation which I introduced today with 20 senators, allowing Americans to import safe, low-cost medicine from Canada. We should not have to pay the highest prices in the world for the medicine we use.
Okay, so that's a little bit of a summary on what Sanders thinks Trump was talking about. And look, he hit him on not protecting Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. And look, Trump did talk about repealing Obamacare. Now, as I pointed out yesterday, they still don't have the whole replace part down. Repeal, yeah, okay, we can do the repeal, but replace, we don't really have a plan for this to replace it. Now, remember also, repealing the ACA, Sanders points out, will just save the richest 400 households a total of $7 million a year. That's why that's all while your prices will go up, because those that $7 million a year paid for the subsidies for the ACA. So your prices will go up. You won't have the subsidy support. Their taxes will go down. And look, speaking of taxes, Trump's tax plan will massively benefit rich people. According to the Tax Policy Center, 47.3% of the gains of his tax plan will go to the top 1%, and nearly a quarter goes to the top 0.1%, all of whom will make over $3.75 million a year. By contrast, only 6.6% of the cost of Trump's plan goes for tax cuts for the middle fifth of taxpayers, the middle class. Households making between $48,000 and $84,000 a year. So that's what. So don't be confused by the flowery rhetoric that he used during his speech. He is for the 1%. He's out there to help rich people. Now, this is a giveaway to the wealthiest Americans who, look, are not at all incentivized to create jobs or invest back into their businesses. That's what's going on here. It's more fairy dust. And it's going to be paid for by cutting incredibly popular programs that people depend on. This is reverse Robin Hood. This is what's going on here. Now, finally, Sanders is going to give his own message to the people who have been out there challenging the Trump administration. Let's take a look at that.
Since the beginning of this year, we have seen unprecedented grassroots energy from Maine to California. Last week, at Republican town hall meetings across the country, and at more than 150 rallies that took place from coast to coast, the American people sent a clear message about what they expect from Congress. As a result, the Republicans are getting very, very worried. They're not so cocky anymore about simply repealing Obamacare. And they should be worried, because the American people are standing up. And what they are saying loudly and clearly is, no, you're not going to repeal the Affordable Care Act. No, you're not going to destroy it. You are going to improve it. And in my view, what we must be doing right now is not only defending the Affordable Care Act, not only improving the Affordable Care Act, we have got to move forward to join the rest of the industrialized world and guarantee health care to all people as a right, not a privilege. We must go forward towards a Medicare for all single-payer program. But defeating these attempts to destroy the Affordable Care Act and transfer even more of our nation's wealth to Donald Trump and his billionaire friends is going to take all of us coming together and making our voices heard. Those of you who attended rallies or town hall meetings, keep showing up, keep calling Congress, and continue the fight. The Republicans are now on the defensive, and we've got to continue to push them back. Those of you who haven't taken action yet, we need your voices. We need your action. Only together, when millions of people stand up and fight for economic justice, for social justice, for racial justice, for environmental justice, only then can we create the political revolution that will turn this country around.
Agreed. Now look, he's right though. They're not cocky anymore. The Republicans, right? That's because most Americans have shown that they don't want to repeal the ACA. I mean, Republicans read polls. Some of them might not believe in polls. Oh, they get the polls wrong. No, they read the polls. According to the new McClatchy-Maris poll released on Monday, 2/3 of Americans are against a full repeal of the ACA. Pollsters also found that Obamacare's provision preventing insurance companies from denying coverage to those with pre-existing conditions remains super popular. 71% want that provision to stay. 78% back a rule letting children stay in their parents' health care plans until the age of 26. 71% want to keep the federal subsidies helping lower-income people pay for health insurance. Now, I mentioned that earlier. That's where that $7 million in taxing rich people, well, that's what that pays for. So you get rid of the ACA, these people save $7 million. They're very, very rich, and you don't get your subsidies anymore. But most of the American people, they're like, no, keep the subsidies. We need the subsidies. That helps us afford health insurance. Basically, what the American people want is the ACA minus the individual mandate. And there are other polls that say pretty much the same thing, where most Americans are like, let's fix the law, let's tweak it, let's do something, let's get rid of some of the stuff that doesn't make sense. For example, they think that let's get rid of the individual mandate. Okay, well, the problem with that, of course, and I've pointed this out before, the mandate's kind of necessary to make the whole fucking thing work. And look, that's just one of the issues that's been raised at these town halls that some Republicans, like Marco Rubio, have been running away from. And I've showed you all these different Republicans that are running from their town halls, running from their constituents. Some of them have gone on to actually answer questions and face their constituents, and got to give them credit for that, for at least listening to the people. But regardless, I mean, this is one of the reasons why some Republicans are running from this, because they don't want to hear it. Because they don't want to be challenged by their constituents, because they work for their donors. So that's what we have here. But look, back to Bernie's message. It's simple. Keep fighting. Keep being active, because that's the only way that you get change, when you challenge your politicians. And it's also one of the only ways that you're going to beat Trump is if you remain active and you get involved in the political system. And it's a good message. Okay. So let's talk about one of the things Trump said in his speech. Now, during his joint address to Congress, President Trump highlighted the scourge of immigrant crime. Which, look, immigrant crime, do immigrants commit crimes? Yes, some of them do. And I'll get into those numbers later on. But let's watch and see what Donald Trump's solution, or one of his solutions, to immigrant crime is. Let's take a look.
We must support the victims of crime. I have ordered the Department of Homeland Security to create an office to serve American victims. The office is called VOICE, Victims of Immigration Crime Engagement. We are providing a voice to those who have been ignored by our media and silenced by special interests. Joining us.
Okay, so basically, there's his little announcement during a speech where he'll create a new DHS office called VOICE. Now, VOICE focuses 100% on immigrant crime. Now, not only is that kind of redundant, but it's also kind of dangerous and unnecessary. Let me explain. I mean, look, I got to ask you, what makes immigrant crime different than regular crime? Crime is crime, right? It's illegal either way, and it gets punished either way. Well, the reason that he's doing this, I believe, is that it fits into a narrative. So if he can go and post reports on immigrant crime, that kind of feeds into what he's talking about, his narrative. That's actually really, really good for him. And of course, this has Bannon all over it. Now, they can point to this, the White House can, and go, oh, look at the criminal immigrants. And he'll be able to get regular people to look at these reports and to go along with him and Bannon's more extreme policies on immigration. That's sort of scary. Because again, crime is crime, and because of what the actual numbers are. According to a 2002 analysis of immigrant crime data, immigrants are actually not more criminal than non-immigrants are. And immigration rates are largely unassociated with crime rates. One of the studies said it is the least reliable and useful source of data that are used to support arguments about the link between immigration and crime. And of course, I'll add that some sources with an agenda continue to try to push this crime-immigration link. Business Insider also notes that if there is a crime increase related to immigrants, it's marginal and tied to poverty and theft. But on crimes that matter most, violent crime, a 2009 study finds that broad reductions in violent crime are partially attributable to increases in immigration, as many other recent studies have also similarly included. So what this is saying, more immigration equals less crime. Now, I'm pretty sure conservative heads just exploded. Like, oh my God, what are you talking about? No, we've been told that immigration equals more crime. But in ways, immigration is now, according to the study, more immigration, less crime. Why? Well, I'll get to that in a minute, but let me get to the incarceration rates for immigrants. Now, roughly 1.6% of immigrant males aged 18 to 39 are in our prison system, compared to 3.3% of native-born people. This disparity in incarceration rates has existed for decades, as evidenced by data from 1980, 1990, and 2000 decennial censuses. A 2015 update to an analysis of the Census Bureau and crime rate statistics said, quote, in each of those years, the incarceration rates of the native-born were anywhere from 2 to 5 times higher than that of immigrants. So basically, what am I saying? What is this data actually pointing out? It points out that if you're an immigrant, usually you're here to make a better life for yourself and your family. That's going to mean that you're going to do less crime. You're going to be more careful not to break the law. Now, look, nobody here wants criminal aliens, right? Which always makes me think of like Klingons stabbing somebody in a bar fight. I mean, come on, criminal aliens. You're a criminal alien. But look, criminals are usually deported, okay? And that's a good thing. We want the criminals, we want the violent criminals gone. We don't want them here. So, and that, look, we've been getting rid of them. In fact, under President Obama, as of 2015, more than 2.5 million undocumented immigrants have been deported by ICE since 2009. In 2013 alone, ICE removed or returned 235,413 individuals. Of that, 86% of those individuals were considered a top priority for deportation. Top priority, or priority 1, means that these people were considered border security or public safety threats. So these are your criminal aliens. 86% of those deported in 2013 alone were deported because they were threats, because they were these criminal aliens. So The Obama administration had been cracking down on this. And now since Donald Trump has been doing his ICE raids, the number of criminal aliens being deported has actually decreased because they've been adding in more non-criminal undocumented immigrants. And it's mainly because I think that they've expanded the definition of a criminal. If you cross the border and become an illegal or undocumented immigrant, well, that automatically makes you a criminal in the eyes of the Trump administration. That was not the same with the Obama administration. And look, I had gone after Obama for deporting nonviolent criminals. Those are the good ones who are here to create a life. Yeah, sure, they crossed a made-up line, but they actually did add to the economy. And of course, they do, according to the data, commit crimes at lower rates than native-born Americans. And look, so that's the data on this, right? So they commit crimes at lower rates. They're incarcerated at lower rates. And, you know, they do help with the economy. So maybe we ought to do, like, I don't know, some sort of immigration reform instead of kicking them all out, as Donald Trump wants to do. And as far as the, look, as far as the whole thing about creating a place where you post immigrant crimes for everybody to see, look, man, I hate to bring it up, but it's kind of what the Nazis did. Now, I'm not saying that Trump's a Nazi or anything like that. Don't freak out. I'm just saying that's kind of what they did. They posted Jewish crimes for people to see. Now, in my opinion, crime is crime. So when you single out the crimes of a specific group, it's because there's some sort of agenda at play. And that agenda usually is to demonize a said group. So just be careful of that. World went down this road before. And the results, they were not pretty. Again, I'm not saying that we're like Nazi Germany and, Trump's a Hitler. No, I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is that what they're doing right now is very, very concerning. And we all need to be paying attention. And to make sure that we don't go further down a dark road that we really don't want to go. Okay. So let's go to marijuana. All right. Anti-marijuana. Marijuana? All right. Anti-marijuana crusader Jeff Sessions, who is now the Attorney General for the United States, was recently speaking at the National Association of Attorneys General about the dangers of legalizing marijuana. Why? Because he believes it will be used for more drug use and would lead to more drug-related violence. Now, I want to show you a clip here of him talking about some of the reasons that we don't need to legalize marijuana, that he's against it. Let's take a look.
My view is that crime does follow drugs. In the 70s and 80s, we saw so many lives destroyed by drug abuse. And I think the drugs today are more powerful, they're more addictive, and they can destroy even more lives. Young people have their lives destroyed. I, as you know, am dubious about marijuana. As states, can pass whatever laws they choose, but I'm not sure we're going to be a better, healthier nation that if we have marijuana being sold at every corner grocery store. I just don't think that's going to be good for us. And
Okay, so I love that, right? Oh man, I really don't want them selling pot at the grocery store. What exactly would be wrong with that? Which, by the way, that's not true. They're not doing that. I don't think they ever planned to do that. Now, what you're thinking of is alcohol and cigarettes, which, by the way, right now are far more dangerous than marijuana. But you don't understand. So many lives have been destroyed. Really. Maybe it's because people like Jeff Sessions destroyed them. When you criminalize certain drugs, marijuana specifically, and put people in prison for ingesting a plant, well, yeah, that kind of destroys their lives. In fact, it really destroys their lives. There are a lot of people in prison right now for smoking marijuana. Kind of destroys their life. And then they can't get jobs after they get out. They've got criminal records. There's a lot of things that they can't do when they get out. So sometimes they end up going right back in. Not a good thing. Now, he's going to talk about, he's going to transition over to opiate abuse and marijuana's role in helping to wean people off harder drugs. Now, he doesn't seem to believe this, that it's possible for marijuana to actually help with people getting off opiates. Now, I want you to watch his remarks, and then I'm going to actually give you the facts. Let's take a look.
We'll have to work our way through that. I'd see a line in the Washington Post today that I remember from the 80s. This one was, if you smoke, marijuana is a cure for opiate abuse. Give me a break. I mean, this is the kind of argument that has been made out there, to just almost a desperate attempt to defend the harmlessness of marijuana or even its benefits. I doubt that's true. Maybe science will prove I'm wrong.
Maybe science will prove that I'm wrong. Okay, well, I've got some science for you. The National Academies of Science, Medicine, and Engineering recently found that strong evidence showing that marijuana is effective at dealing with chronic pain in adults. Now, you might be asking, well, wait a minute, what does that have to do with opiate addiction? Well, here's the connection. People get chemically addicted to opiates because they're taking them for chronic pain. This is chronic pain medication. Now, first, what happens is they get this chronic pain, they go to the doctor, they get prescribed an opiate to take care of it, right? Well, during that time where they're taking the medication, some people end up getting addicted because these drugs are highly addictive. Then, when their prescription runs out, they might turn to harder drugs because they're addicted. Oftentimes, it's heroin. So this is one of the reasons that we have a heroin epidemic. And here's another amazing stat. Americans consume roughly 80% of the world's opiate painkiller supply. 80% in just America. Again, it's because they're overprescribed for people that don't necessarily need them. Now, these drugs are often prescribed for long-term treatment of chronic pain. Prescription painkillers and other opioids are highly addictive, and taking too much of them, of course, can lead to your death. Marijuana, on the other hand, it's impossible to overdose on marijuana. Pot won't kill you. That's a fact. Yes, there is some debate on whether or not pot is addictive, but we do know that opiates are very easy to get addicted to. They give you a chemical dependence. Dependence on marijuana, not chemical, but there are other ways that you could be dependent on a drug. Now, there's more. According to a 2014 study in the JAMA Internal Medicine, states with medical marijuana laws between 1999 and 2010 saw on average about 25% fewer opiate overdose deaths than states with such laws. So basically what you do is that if you have medical marijuana and people are taking that instead of opiates, well, golly gee, look at that. You have less fatal overdose from opiates. Amazing. What's more, the effect of a medical marijuana law appeared to grow over time, meaning more lives were saved each additional year after the law's implementation, suggesting an effect of more people using the medical marijuana instead of these opiates. And they're dying less. And they're actually better. They're actually happier. Not only that, but you have a 2015 working paper published by the National Bureau of Economic Research. They found that the presence of medical marijuana dispensaries in a state was linked to a 15 to 35% decrease in admissions to substance abuse treatment centers, along with a similar decline in overdose deaths. So less people getting addicted, less people going in or to these treatment centers, less people dying, all by saying medical marijuana. And yet Jeff Sessions totally against that. He's against it. He's not in favor of it. He says, well, states can do what they want, but it's still legal on the federal level, which means he could still continue to crack down. because federal law, of course, supersedes state law, at least when it comes to drug enforcement. That's why President Obama, and I called him out on it, would continue to do raids in California of medical marijuana dispensaries. Now, there's more. I got more science for you. A study published last year in the Journal of Pain found chronic pain patients who were reported marijuana use were actually 64% less likely to report using opiates, more likely to report a good quality of life, and less likely to report negative side effects from their medication. Not only that, but to claim marijuana leads to more violence, well, that's also not backed up by facts. That's another thing they use, the reefer madness. Oh man, you smoke that weed, you're going to get violent. You're going to end up killing people. That's what happens. No, it's not what happens. In fact, a 2014 study showed no increase in violent crime, and actually some evidence of decreasing rates of some types of violent crime, namely homicide and assault in places where at least medical marijuana is legal. The only thing you want to murder when you're high is a bag of chips. And yet, no, reefer madness, man. Reefer madness. You smoke that pot, you're going to become a violent person, and then you're going to go and do that heroin. That's just not true. In fact, smoking marijuana or using the bong or whatever, the edibles, all that stuff actually helps decrease use of opiates. And it has an effect on pain. It makes you a happier person when you do it. If you have chronic pain and you use marijuana to reduce that level of chronic pain, it actually works. And it makes you less likely to go and get harder drugs. Come on, man. Look, if he's even looking for science, he's failing hard. All he should do is look, the journals are there, the studies are there, and we haven't even scratched the surface of the studies. All he's got to do is open a fucking book. All the information is there. And not only that, but again, as I mentioned, we're barely even scratching the surface of marijuana research. Why? Well, it's because marijuana is still on the Schedule 1 drug list. Still a Schedule 1 drug. That means it has zero medicinal value. Zero. Even with all these studies showing, hey, there's value here. No. It's still going to be Schedule 1. We're going to say it's more dangerous than crack. You've got to be ridiculous. Or you've got to be kidding. This is ridiculous. He's ridiculous. Okay? Look, the studies that I show, that I talked about, they demonstrate that that marijuana having no medicinal value is untrue. It is bullshit. That's science. These are there's science, there's facts, and then there's whatever the hell Jeff Sessions is talking about. Because it's neither. Insanity. That's our drug war for you, man. All right. Let's see. Should we do I think we'll do one more Trump related story, and then we'll talk about Flint. Okay. Now, there have been a recent rash of bomb threats against Jewish community schools and community centers. Now, last night, Donald Trump in his speech did address that, and he condemned those, as he should. However, one of his surrogates, a man named Anthony Scaramucci, has some different thoughts about this. Instead of going out and completely condemning these, he's actually saying, well, hey, man, yeah, they're not great, but, we don't know if it's white supremacists. It could be the Democrats that are out there doing this. Yes, he actually thinks that Democrats are calling in these bomb threats to make Donald Trump look bad. Now, this was in The Intercept. Now, Scaramucci, who did fundraise for the Trump campaign and joined his transition team and had even been running for a senior role in the White House, recently took to Twitter on Tuesday to imply that some of these threats against these Jewish centers, these bomb threats, are coming from liberals. He tweeted, "It's not yet clear who the JCC offenders are, but don't forget that the Democrats' effort to incite violence at Trump rallies." Well, now wait a minute here. Oh, he's saying that Democrats incited violence at Trump rallies. Now, there are a lot of Democratic protesters that ended up getting thrown out, beaten up by some Trump supporters. There's video of that. It's been highly documented. Now, his whole evidence of this is from James O'Keefe. Now, James O'Keefe is a guy who's been caught heavily editing Sting videos. So any evidence that he comes out with, well, it needs to be looked at. Even if it is true, it needs to be looked at with a grain of salt, or maybe a lot of salt. Because again, he's been known to selectively edit his videos to come out with whatever conclusion that he went into the video with. So this is not somebody who should actually trust. Now, here's the funny thing, right? After these Sting videos, some of these, the Democrats, probably because they're fucking weak, have fired people related to these videos, even if they didn't do anything wrong. You had Planned Parenthood. Somebody at Planned Parenthood, and this was a different Sting video, not done by James O'Keefe, but another place that actually got in trouble for doing these edit videos. People at Planned Parenthood still fired this person, even though she did nothing wrong. She did absolutely nothing wrong. So this is how weak the Democrats are. Oh no, if there's any hint of controversy, we have to immediately fire someone. But wait, what do we know these videos are legit? Because again, this guy has a history of selectively editing these videos. So anyway, now that's sort of the evidence that Scaramucci uses to push the possibility that Democrats have been perpetrating bomb threats in order to make Trump look bad. Now look, when called out on this on Twitter, Scaramucci said, no, I'm just saying that until we know for sure, it's highly irresponsible to jump to any conclusions. Well, look, you're right. Except that you're also possibly jumping to conclusions. Now, we don't know who's doing this. In fact, nobody here is saying that it's got to be Trump supporters. No, of course not. Is it possible? Sure. Is it possible that it could be Democrats? It could be. That's why we investigate this whole thing. That's why we go and actually try to find out the facts. And if it is some left-wingers, which I highly doubt, then we point them out and we condemn them. And then they get in trouble. We let the law do its thing. Because you don't do that. And by the way, his first tweet referred to people staging protests at Trump rallies. So how is that close to calling bomb threats against Jewish centers? That's not even close, dude. That's a huge leap. Come on, man. And look, aside from last night, you got to notice that the Trump administration has been a little tepid on challenging hate crimes from the far-right fringes. It should be really easy to call them out, even if they're right-wing hate crimes. Left-wing doesn't have any problem calling them out. Because violence is violence. Crime is crime. You got to call it what it is. But when it comes from their side, they're really hesitant on pointing this out. Not only that, but Holocaust Remembrance Day. They weren't exactly, the Trump administration wasn't exactly forward about saying anything about it. They kind of left the Jews out. But that's the whole point of the Holocaust, is to point out what happened to the Jews. Just saying. For some reason, it seems to be just a little bit difficult for them to talk about this. And you can't deny that there hasn't been a wave of anti-immigrant, anti-Semitic, anti-LGBT attacks going in America since Trump began to run on some of his rhetoric. In fact, Z. Jelani of The Intercept notes that part of the strategy of the Trump administration has been to deny any links between Trump's rhetoric, far-right ideology, and the recent hate crimes. Now, let me give you some examples. Rick Santorum recently appeared on CNN to imply that without evidence that the wave of anti-Semitic hate crimes is actually coming from Muslims. No, it has nothing to do with our rhetoric against certain groups. No, what it is that It's just it's the Muslims. It's always the Muslims. You got to blame the Muslims. It's kind of funny because when the Jewish cemeteries were attacked, who stepped in to help? The Muslims, the Muslim community. And actually, there was a huge fundraiser by Linda Sarsour. Sarsour raised a total of $140,000 within a week. That's enough to help the people fix up the cemetery. But no, it must be the Muslims. It's got to be the Muslims. It can't be anybody else. Sure. And until last night, the Trump administration hardly reacted to the recent shooting of an Indian man. Now, the shooter, of course, reportedly thought he was Iranian and yelled, according to witnesses, "Get out of my country." Gee, I don't know if that has anything to do with nationalist tones. When asked whether there was any link between the shooter's belief and Trump's rhetoric against Muslims, Sean Spicer replied, "Any loss of life were tragic, but I'm not going to get into that kind of... To suggest there's any correlation to Trump's rhetoric, I think it's a bit absurd." Spicer was also asked last week if Trump condemns Islamophobia in general, and he offered no comment, instead saying, "Hey, our administration is focused on going after radical Islam." Radical Islam. Now, he says if you want to come in here, or if you come here and want to express views that seek to do our country and our people harm, then he's going to fight it aggressively. And look, I agree with that. Now, he replied to a question about Islamophobia, so there's a big difference between preventing attacks and making sure that we keep this country safe so that there is no loss of life. But again, if everybody agrees, right or left, that if you try to come and harm Americans, that you don't belong here. Of course, we all agree with this. We all agree. The question, though, was about Islamophobia. Because there is certain rhetoric coming out of the right wing and the Trump administration that is anti-Muslim. And again, back to the point of the Jewish centers. Again, we don't know who called in the threats. But usually people who are against Jewish people tend to fall on the far right of the political spectrum. And that's something that is historic. The idea that Democrats would false flag this kind of stuff, look, to be honest to me, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's not like white supremacists have never threatened Jews before. It's kind of what they do. But what Scaramucci is essentially trying to do, in my opinion at least, and I could be wrong, is part projection. Well, yeah, we might do something like that. So I would assume that liberals might do it too. Again, that's what I think. I'm not necessarily right. I'm not saying that I'm 100% right. And also, look, they want to avoid offending the very small but fervent part of the base that helped these guys get into power. And they're counting on to help them win a second term. There is a very small, very vociferously racist group of people who support policies from Donald Trump. And we know that. And look, I could be wrong, right? Let's see where the facts come out on this. Because in some cases, like, for example, I covered the black church that was burnt down. Somebody wrote Trump on the side. Well, it turns out this was done by a black parishioner at that church to make Trump look bad. So look, with that established, and there are cases like that, we have to wait. We have to see where the facts lie before we can blame either the right or the left for these anti-Semitic attacks. Okay. All right. I'm going to take a quick break here, and I'll be right back. All right, we're back. Sorry about that. We got one more story for you guys. We have a Flint water story. So let's get into that. Today, Flint residents will again be forced to pay full price for water that is still not considered by the state safe to drink. Now, the Washington Post is reporting that the state officials have just today ended a program that had helped pay residents' water bills since the city water system became contaminated with lead. Now, since then, the state has roughly spent $41 million in certain credits to help offset local utility bills for these residents that are affected. How much should they pay? Residents have gotten about a 65% credit each month on their water bill, while commercial accounts have received a 20% credit. Now, my question is, why wasn't that number 100%? It's got to be 100%. I mean, if the water is unusable, why should the residents continue to have to pay for it? That is my question. Now, look, the residents, they didn't ruin the water supply. The emergency manager, trying to save a few bucks, ruined the water supply. So, again, I don't see why the people had to sit there and pay for toxic water. Makes no sense. Now, Anna Heaton, who is a spokeswoman for Rick Snyder, said the credits are ending because the city water meets all federal water quality standards under the Lead and Copper Rule and Safe Drinking Water Act. Now, she says it's the same standards as other cities. Now, she also says the threshold honors an agreement reached by Snyder, the Flint government, and state lawmakers who originally appropriated money for the utility bill credits. Nonetheless, they still had to pay a great deal for water that they couldn't use. It's not a good thing. Now, she added that the state will continue to provide water filters and filter replacement cartridges to assure residents that the water is safe for consumption, even as lead service line replacement is underway. The thing is, though, if you still need water filters for lead, well, then the water's not quite fixed. And plus, there are a lot of pipes that still need to be replaced. Now, the thing is here, if they start charging full price for water again, well, that might put some Flint residents literally underwater, since they have one of the highest water bills in the state, maybe even the country. So you're going to get these people and that can't get these water these water pipes replaced that were contaminated by this lead until they're current on their bills. So again, this is one of the problems with having them be charged 100% of their water usage, especially since they still need a lot of work, they still need to replace some pipes, and the water is still somewhat contaminated as they need filters. So this is what's going on. Now, at a recent news conference, Flint Mayor Karen Weaver said the state should continue to pick up the tab for residents' water until it is tap drinkable without a filter. And she says simply, why? Because this is a trust issue. That's what it is. There's a lot of people that don't trust what the Snyder administration is saying, and I really don't blame them. And look, last month, the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality said this latest analysis shows the city system tested below action levels of the federal lead and copper rule, and at levels comparable to cities with similar size and age of infrastructure in Michigan and across the nation. However, these results don't necessarily mean the water is safe. It's not like the Snyder administration hasn't lied about the safety of their water. They're in the middle of the crisis. Back in 2014, residents would come to these meetings with state officials, with EPA officials, and say, our water is fucked. Look at our water. No, it's completely safe. We did our own analysis on it. The water's completely safe. Well, our analysis, we took it to an independent analysis and got the water tested, and it says it's got a lot of lead in it, dangerous levels of lead. It's undrinkable. And just look at it. It's undrinkable. No, your analysis is wrong. You're trying to make things up. This is why they don't trust the government. This is why these people are very distrustful of these officials and distrustful of these studies. In fact, the Washington Post says such results don't necessarily ensure the water is safe. City residents continue to be advised not to drink the water unless it's been properly filtered. And many residents continue to refuse to use it for both cooking and bathing. They instead have to rely on bottled water. And again, do you really blame them? This was a failure of government at all levels. That's what's going on here. There is no trust because the government, during this entire crisis, has dropped the ball and has lied to them multiple times to their face. No, there's nothing wrong with the water whatsoever. Really? Why don't you drink it? Not thirsty. Not thirsty. Right. And look, this whole thing started with changing over to the Flint River without adding these anti-corrosion chemicals that ended up exposing thousands of people, many of them children, to very high levels of lead, which can cause long-term physical and mental impairment. And look, some people even died from this. A dozen people have been killed by Legionnaire's disease that is linked to drinking this contaminated water. So no, they're not going to trust the water until they have a completely new source. Now, the city is still working on trying to hook up a new source. So until that happens, I think that it's fair the city cover 100% of these bills, of these water bills. It's not like they're using a ton of it anyway, to be honest with you. But nonetheless, they've got no reason to trust the Snyder administration for getting them into this mess in the first place. And look, as I reported before, there was a racist element involved. There was an independent study that came out and said racism against the people of Flint, against the city of Flint, is prevalent in all of these different decisions. That they didn't care about the minority population in that city. I don't know, let's just switch right over to the Flint River. It's not like they'll notice. They noticed. They noticed. So, it's disgusting. So no, look, they shouldn't pay anything until the water is 100% clean, all the pipes fixed and replaced, and put onto another safe water source. Because this is a failure of government. And the government needs to come in and they need to completely fix this problem. That's the only way they're ever going to get the trust back. Okay. That's it, man. That's all I got for you today. I want to thank you for tuning in, for going around the nation with me today. Right here, TYT Nation. Again, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for subscribing. And like and share this video. And I appreciate it, man. Let's see. Do we have anything more? I'm trying to think. It's been one of those days to me. I don't know why, but it's been an off day. So, thanks to the patrons. You guys are awesome. You help continue to fund independent progressive media. Thank you so much. Patreon.com/TYTNation. Like us, follow us on Twitter. Like us on Facebook. TYT Nation, both sides. That's pretty much it. Love you guys. We'll see you all tomorrow. Same time, same place. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, TYT Nation.